us too. Katie, this is the perfect time for you to introduce the wonderful Joely. I think you have to do the introductions here.
I guess I do. So, welcome to Joely Koos, who we're like insanely excited to have on.
I'm so delighted to be here.
What do I start with about Joely? So, Joely is on the cello faculty at Trinity Laban Conservatoire. She teaches at Eton College. She's an incredible cellist in every possible way. Huge inspiration to me. Guest leads all these posh orchestras everywhere. Does every cool imaginable thing you can. Runs her own cello course. Is my Pilates instructor.
God, you sound so good. Can you just...
That's not even... I mean... That's not even cutting the surface of it. I mean, yeah, Joely is just a woman and cellist extraordinaire in all ways, and it's so great to have you here. Yay.
Well, I'm going to say back at you, girls. Amazing. And I think this whole online where you can access these wonderful cello power is just fabulous. Bang on. Perfect.
Joely, it's so lovely to have you here, and I've heard Katie talk about you incessantly over the years. I've known Katie for a while at this stage, and I've always wanted to know who this amazing person was she talked about, and it's our pleasure to have you here with us.
Well, all I can say is I think, I hope I don't embarrass you, Katie, but I think it is that there was a bit of we're very similar, I think energy-wise. So the enthusiasm and the idea that you learn, and that humility, that you learn more if you stay humble and don't, and she was always so wonderful in my cello classes. All those years ago, Katie, you set such a... I'm so glad Katie's here, because you set such a great tone, in your attitude.
Thank you. There's just something about your energy, Joely, when you're playing in a section or doing chamber music with you or anything. You're one of these people that I think really brings the best out of others and really makes people feel comfortable so they can shine. So I know you're going to do that today for our paper and just make us play amazing. No pressure.
Well, I was just going to say that the same thing was true when Katie came to Ireland and joined the symphony orchestra. I think one of the things, I suppose as well, apart from being a fabulous player, naturally, but her energy, I think, was just so great for all the cellists. Just breath of fresh air, enthusiasm, light, brightness, and I think you both have that as part of your personality, and that's what more we want to have in the cello world, isn't that right?
Too right.
And I mean, let's not leave Ailbhe out here, because I mean, she totally encompasses all of this. God, we're just gonna have a love fest of how awesome we all are for an hour, aren't we?
I feel it already. I feel it. So, Joely, tell us how you picked number 28 for today to join us, and what made you pick number 28, first of all? Because
I'm going to be honest with you. I chose number 28 because I'd never learnt it.
Me too.
I chose okay, and I can tell you why I didn't. I remember looking at it years ago and saying I can't do it. And I wasn't always. I mean, I was forced to learn my proper studies by my teachers, quite rightly, but I never felt very confident with them. And I'm just delighted to have kept working with them, because they are actually an amazing resource. So the thing that really inspired me was the fact that my daughter learned it. She was playing it, and she sounded really good. And I went, and she went, I really like this piece. And she didn't talk it like an etude. It was a piece. And and I thought, I feel really ashamed. This is my 17-year-old daughter has learnt it before me. So
nice. I'm so impressed.
I asked her to teach it to me. I said, can I sit down and read? So we had a session on it, and I thought, I'm going to learn that. Then Katie rang, and I thought, okay, I'm going to make myself learn it for you.
Nice. Wow, I love that.
And also, you performed it for, I mean, you're so brave. City of London.
Was I brave? Can I just tell you, isn't that one of the things we've had to do in this lockdown? Feel the fear and do it anyway? Because when you play live, you live in the moment, you rely on, there's a kind of energy between you and the audience, and you can kind of just live in that moment, feel the fear, do it anyway, fine. The minute you go online, live streaming, Where is anyone? There's just this little hole at the top of your computer. And then there's that thought, this is here forever. People can access this at any point. So this thing about you're only as good as your last performance was enough of a pressure before lockdown. Now you're only as good as the performance you put down online. It's like weighs heavily. And for me, you just literally have to say, oh, what the hell? I'm going to do it. I'm not going to worry about it. So I did. You're right. And interestingly enough, it was a couple of weeks ago, and I took it at a nice pedestrian speed, like, I can cope with this. But yeah, and I thought, if I can do that, then I can do it for you with less fear.
I thought yours was... I thought your tempo was like really...
Was it okay?
Pretty,
all right.
Pretty snippy. I mean,
I
according to
what you think of
the
my
Baron
tempo
Rider...
today.
Yeah, according to the Baron Rider edition, the ideal tempo is dotted crotchet, or no, crotchet equals 66. So.
Oh, slow.
That is slow.
Oh God, I got it up to 90. Okay.
Nice.
But you know
what?
There's a lot to be learnt from practicing at a different tempos, because they, you know, it's not just the fast one that tests you actually.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? Like with this one, I mean, the bow control is so much more difficult if it's
absolutely slower. So I do this at ridiculously slow speed as well for the bow. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
You're right.
And occasionally doing 2 bars in one bow. Just
Now,
to totally freak yourself out.
I haven't tried that. I'm going to get you to demonstrate in a minute.
It's not for public consumption, but what happens is, and I'll
really
happily give it a go. I totally will.
No, I'm joking.
But what happens is, you know, when you come back to one bar, then suddenly, I always do this, we've come across this before, where I like to just elongate everything, and then suddenly when I've one bow, I'm like, this is like a walk in the park. Like
yes,
bow control is not an issue anymore.
Yeah.
So, frighten first, relax later.
Yes, I think that's a very, very good idea.
You know, I think it's kind of funny to practice another study for a study, but do you know what I was thinking this morning? It would be so good for this one is that Gritzmacher number 2, Joely,
Yeah, and doing 2 bows with that one. Yeah, all the string crossings. That's all in one bow, yeah. And you're doing all the string crossings over, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is how I worked on it. It's quite episodic. We've got a chunk at the beginning, then we've got another chunk. It falls into quite nice, handy chunks in terms of how you're going to approach it and work on it. And I would always say chunking a study is a very good idea anyway. You know, just so you take the overwhelming feeling that there are just a pile of black notes in front of you, and where do you go with it? And then you spend hours on it, and then you notice that when you record it, it only lasts about a minute and a bit. It's classic.
Depends what speed you take it.
No, yeah, okay. All right, even at slow speed, 2 minutes, you know, all that out. Always the case that you spend hours and hours working, you know. So, I'm looking at this, and the things that came up for me were, first of all, finger action. As most of the time, we look at something and we overdo it. The tendency is, when we're playing, is to... I would want to play it very slowly and in tune, but the first thing would occur to me is how I would put my fingers into the string. And that, you need to know where the end point is. Sure. So the end point is grazioso and antino. So I would want to bring the first of every beat out, but be very light on the others. So that requires a very soft hand and not a need to push into the fingerboard so much. A really close, light action like this, like you're dancing on top of the string.
Yeah. I found when I was doing this, so I actually used the Baron Rider editions, which has the 4 at the top, and I wouldn't usually use the 4th finger very much in my playing. And as I'm going through these proper Etudes, I noticed that it's a good skill for me to have to throw in whenever I want. So it's obviously becoming much more comfortable. But I was noticing that I was like slamming down my 4th finger just to make sure that. And then suddenly you have in the sound, and really you really want a bouncing feel, right?
Yeah. Now, it's interesting you say that, because that's one of the reasons I didn't do this popper. And I was going to say that I'm a real believer in doing different fingerings and then choosing the one that's right for your hand. And that is something that has developed more, is think about your body use and what works best for you and your body and good use. Now, I have a very short fourth finger that doesn't reach even that joint. And it's made me, as I've got older, really consider how I use my fourth. Really thinking about it. So I might even not use fourth in fourth position sometimes, because I feel hampered, and I start to use an action with a straight finger that is unhelpful. So I need to be able to come round and have a similar action to the other fingers. So I practice this. It's very interesting you brought that with the fourth finger. But in order to get a good action on that fourth, I need to bring my palm in closer. So and that was fine, but in the end I felt I made a better sound doing a different fingering, so I chose that. So my suggestion is this: always try different fingerings, exploring what works for you. Practice it as far as you can go, but then find out the one that really works, because whoever wrote was it Popper? What was his hand size? What were his relative finger sizes? And it's always working with that.
It's fascinating, because I think mine probably is a bit longer than yours, is it?
Yours is, if you look at if you compare, oh, I've got to work it that way. I do think, so can you see mine doesn't even come to the first joint of my next finger. Yours is well over it. Those tiny millimetres make a difference as to how you balance through your hand.
And mine's quite comfy there, actually. And you can see when I put it, I don't really have to change too much. I still have to make sure that I use a little bit of that wrist action, but it's much more comfortable than it looks when you...
I've got to give you guys a third version of this, because this is hilarious. So I have a very short pinky too, but I think our hands are different, Julie, in that my index finger is longer than my ring finger.
Super long,
And I've talked about this in a few other videos, but for years and years I would go and play for different teachers, and they would be like, well, you really need to get your first finger organized. And I realized not that long ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, that the reason for that was because this finger is so much longer, and a lot of people don't struggle with that. So I actually found, for me, practicing it with the fourth finger and doing more fourth finger these poppers has really helped the actual necessity I have in all sorts of thumb position to really get used to playing on that side of my first finger. It's almost like I'm practicing the extreme version of that, which makes me feel more comfortable in just a normal extended thumb. So it's kind of funny, because I've used that fourth finger thing to just develop that sort of flexibility and comfort more.
Yes.
Yeah, but this is a time when we can actually look at the fact that there is not one rule for everyone. And
absolutely.
Your hand shape is what defines your technique. No matter what any teacher tells you, there used to be that thing of, you play the German school, you play these fingerings.
Absolutely, there was. And you're a failure if you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
As well. And actually, the interesting thing is, it's the opposite. You're a success if you can try different fingerings and then find them.
Make them work.
Yeah, for you. I think about that when you look at fingerings by really famous players. Let's say Rostropovich, Shostakovich cello concerto. Now he does a lot of cross fifths. Well, I can't get my little finger across 2 strings.
Yeah.
I have to go on the bone on the side. Okay. Yeah. That's just that, again, a compromise. So I then get very I do guitar fingering. That I do all cross here. But I thought, oh, you do as well. So I remember playing with a very good cellist with tiny hands. He was performing this. And I turned to him and I said, oh, I've got a fingering for that. And he said, so have I. I can't do Rostropovich's cross, all this. He said, I do this. And I went, that's my fingering. And we both got...
It's Ailbhe's too, apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think finding out what works for you is really important. But exercising like you've been doing, Katie and Ailbhe, is exercising yourself in a less comfortable way is also another way to find out how your hand works, strengthen it up in a careful way. Yeah.
Big time.
So, I mean, Ailbhe, you talked about the two bows thing for the bow control. Is there other approaches you guys took to controlling the bow speed in this one and feeling like you have a lot of time to get those notes to speak?
For me, I didn't do the two bow, and I will take that on board. I'm going to do that next. I literally just divide my bow like a mathematician into thirds. And I would do this. I would think, only use a third. I'd rest on the first. Stop. Check.
Good.
Stop. Check. But the ability of doing just the third as well is when you can then check on your sound. You just take that, check, on. Always think about your sound, because the other thing you need to consider here is your point of contact. And that, I don't know how you found that. That was a little bit of a difficulty, because normally I play very near the bridge.
Me too.
Particularly for the D string. But you can't be too near the bridge for this, because it's light and flautando-y. So I had to put a little bit of weight on the D and then back off on the A. So again, I played this. So weight. So I would just have that feeling of leaning on the D and light on the other strings. It's very subtle, because of course as you get faster, that differentiation gets smaller, but I'd make it very large under tempo.
Yeah, I love that. That's this is the one thing for me in this study, because it's such a short turnover for us, is, you know, the bow point of contact. And I just couldn't understand, whenever I play up here, I'm riding on the bridge entirely, all the time. Yeah. And then, of course, it's marked piano, so it has to feel like it's flowing. And so I found I really had to actually just play in the middle, which seemed very low for up this high in the left hand.
Me too, me too. It really had to be more floaty. Yeah, I'm just getting it so you can see where I'm. So if you look, I'm there. And I'd consider that to be normally you'd make a reedy sound there. Yeah. But it works for this.
It does.
It works for this.
It makes a slightly pan-pipey sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got that. It's a fairy. It's fairies in the glade. This piece, isn't it?
If you're going to use this technique in your next piece, Ailbhe.
Oh my god, yeah. I'm going to be like, this is the point of contact. And
there was one popper we did recently, and you're like, I was like, I can't think of any examples where this comes in the repertoire, and you're like, actually, it's in my solo sonata. And it was like anyway.
Nerd.
So what about when you get down to first position, you have that? Because I actually found when you get there and you move closer to the bridge, did you guys have issues with? I don't know. It's probably because I need more time to practice it, but where this note's almost breaking because you're trying to put so much pressure in, and it is forte there. So
it is, but then forgive me, Ailbhe, because you're a composer, but like every piece, what's more important is, what is this piece about? Yeah. So it's not just an etude. What is your concept of it? And for me, there was never a moment where it needs to feel that loud. For my, it says Andantina Graziosa, but I actually have a picture in my head. And it is a bit fairyland. It's a glade and there's a river with sunlight glinting on it. It's a glinting, it's this. So that when I get to here, I too will do it. But it feels like I'm stepping out of a frame going into a different piece here. So it feels like it wants to be more. So again, what is forte? What is it? Is it energy? Is it literally decibel? Does it mean heaviness? Or could it be a sort of light forte?
Yeah.
I don't know. So I'm afraid then you have mezzo forte up high. What's that? Forte to mezzo forte? If I had a word with Mr. Popper, I'd say, oh, come on. That's not... Can we do... So I tried to do a bit more of a contrast, really.
A little bit of a call and answer.
Well,
opera.
what do you think, Ailbhe, forte to mezzo forte, with that?
So similarly to Katie, if I tried to do a heavy forte down there, you have this kind of crud noise that is just totally uninvited in this piece.
Yeah.
And so again, I was laughing, saying, well, I'm back in the midway point, in a place that I would never ever play forte normally. So here I am. But then Katie knows this of me, that I, as a performer, have often, with either fingerings or dynamics or whatever it said, absolutely bin. They don't know what they're talking about, not for me anyway, so I'm going to bin that, and I'm going to play what is most convincing for me. So here, I think all Popper is trying to do, if he even did do these dynamics, is have a, bigger gesture, lesser gesture, bigger gesture, that idea. And
I
as a
totally
composer,
agree with you.
what I've discovered as a composer is that, Boozy and Hawks will get in touch and say, I need a piece, and I'll write it and I'll go, oh, dynamics, and then I'll throw a few in and throw it off, which is terrible. But everyone knows that's what composers actually do, and they haven't actually performed it ever. It's only after I record the pieces myself that I'm like, oh, that should definitely be a dip here and whatever. But composers actually, a lot of people now don't play really right when they write.
They do, but also even if they do, this has been, because I work with a lot of composers, that the thing I'm fascinated with is the changing of the mind. So I remember the first time this happened to me when I was at university, I used to sing, and I sang some songs with Robin Holloway, and he'd written some Wherever You May Be, they were called. And there was one point when I was really giving it something, and he said, ooh, that's quite aggressive the way you're singing that. I said, well, he'd written something like forte marcato. And he went, oh, I don't want that today. I want it to be soothing piano. So I wrote piano soothing, and I thought, and then I went back, because part of my course was looking at, manuscripts, going back to the source. And I thought, well, yeah, on the day, that's what the composer wanted. But maybe if they were alive now, and they came in the room and they were working with you as a performer, you might negotiate that differently. The performer might say, oh, I was imagining this, what do you think? And the composer might very well say, oh, I love that, change it. Or you get some composers who say, no, I wrote forte, I mean forte.
Yeah. So what I'm definitely the type of composer who is like very specific now actually about my dynamics. But if a performer thinks it doesn't work for them, change away and make it the best performance you can. Yeah. Because that's what music is, right? So
yes, it is.
Proper,
for it to be
well
convincing.
played, but did you do this properly?
Yeah.
So part of the process in making it is you're not just looking at forte, you're saying what kind of forte, and then as you learn the piece into a performance piece, you question whether what you're doing actually works in the arc of this piece. Does this work in my overall concept and how I'm going to perform this 1.5-minute piece? Yeah. And that's the bit I struggled, because I was playing it quite aggressively at one point. I didn't like that. I was thinking, why am I doing that? Stop. Sure. So yeah.
Yeah, great.
I think the most difficult patch, can we talk about that first? Because it comes before, is I think that's really, that for me was the one that was always slower behind everything else, just moving it along. And that is, I was thinking of guitarists who go from chord to chord really quickly. That is a classic one where you have handshakes, where you have to go from one to another. And the other thing I think that's hard is the string crossing.
String crossing and getting
the
your
string crossing, this.
Yeah.
And that, I think, so for me, I don't know how you work, but I would always have a balance of my arm that is ready on the A. So I would be working, I'll just see if I'd be working like that rather than like that.
Yes.
Because there's no time. So you're hard, so you're that. So then it's much easier to negotiate.
Yeah.
Practicing it, I don't know, how do you practice your string crossings? How did
it's funny because we were doing Popper 38 last week, which is totally different than this one, but it's all octaves and...
Oh God, that one, yes!
And because Ailbhe knows this really well, I practice my double stops every day, including octaves, but I do not practice them with string crossings. And it's like a total, I mean, it's like a completely different ballgame when you throw a string crossing in there.
Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say because after doing that one last week, I have to say I didn't really think that much about the string crossing in this. Like, I think if you just feel like completely in control with those shifts and you're not, like I mean, I guess probably both you guys did this too, but just practicing the octaves first.
Absolutely.
And
you want to get the skeleton in, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I find that, like, once that's really controlled, then it frees up, like, sort of my energy to focus just on the gesture of that working, yeah.
So you're quite right. I mean, if you want an order, what order do you practice something in? That one, you're absolutely right. You want to get your hand in the right position as you go up.
Yeah.
And do you do measurements and all that kind of thing? You know exactly where your thumb's going because of where it's been. All that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone's watching this and they're going, what the hell do you mean by measurement? I'm in this hand position here where I've got a tone, and a semitone under my hand to play this. Now my thumb is going to go where my second was. So I don't need to look at the cello. I know it's going there. So that's set of measurement. Then you're in a position where you're playing semitone, tone, and your thumb is going to go where your second finger was. So there's a sense of I'm going to here, I'm going to there. And it's quite a nice way of feeling your way around the cello. So I would do exactly mapping the thumb, but also having a sense of of measurement of where I'm going to help. Yeah. The string crossing is what eluded me though, interestingly enough. Because I found as it got faster, I found that it wasn't quite moving with the left hand well enough.
Right.
So for me, I did funny little things like stopping before the string crossing. Yeah. Particularly the second one, maybe. That's one you could do. Or you can do one under tempo, this would be, but little accents, just. That's just in a way to kick your brain into remembering. It's just a little brain kick. Take the accent out, but keep it in your brain.
Exactly, yeah. I love all of those things that you're talking about because it's really about training how you can actually get both hands really, really similarly all along. And I actually even went, so I would always practice everything in rhythms, just the whole time. I'm always, because it tends to speed up my practice. You did the first one there, but even the second one.
Yes.
And then the third one. You know, that was terribly interesting, so I'd have to do it again. I'd have to make sure that I, totally out of tune, go back to just the one before it. So you're not wasting your time starting from the start all the time.
Absolutely.
But you literally start. Lovely, we finally got it in the right place.
I have
do
to
that
say,
5 times, you're good.
I totally agree, but I do that all the time. The rhythm one, where you do one note that's long, and then chuck a couple of short ones. Here it would work in threes.
In threes.
Sometimes you have it in fours. Da 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 da, and you go da 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 da, and you carry on. The other one
sixes.
is
if you're getting really advanced.
Yeah.
I didn't get that far.
Absolutely.
Any rhythms you can think of, the more creative, the better.
Absolutely. And the other one is the other one is to work fast in a block. Block, then put 2 blocks together and so on. Do you do that as well? That kind of thing?
Yes. And the string crossing as well, I don't mind occasionally. I didn't do it this week because I ran out of time. But I actually would think about the rhythm and go... So like you're actually singing that took me a while to verbalize.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
That's a really good one, yeah.
But then at pace. So then you're actually doing and you know what you are, you know where you are rhythmically. We're good.
It's quite hard to do that one with this because it really is. That one was very difficult. The other one is just again for any viewers going, what does she mean by playing in blocks? Literally, let's say you just work, and then you make sure your brain has a chance to map out the next moment. Then you play. So I do a map, stop, stop.
Brilliant.
And if there's any slip at any point, that's where I go back and go slower over it. So it gives you a chance, that stopping gives you a chance to map the next moment, and gives you a chance also to listen and check. And I think that's really important. Then, if you feel that's working, you add the two together. Sorry. Then two together again. And then gradually 3, 4, 5, so that your brain can start to stay ahead of the game.
Do you know, I want to point out something you're doing that I do too, and I think it's so great. And like when you're practicing in blocks like that, what you've just demonstrated is repeating that first note of each group. So it's the last note you play, and then it's the first note. And I think that's actually really important because you're practicing the transition then as well. Absolutely. You know, you're not just practicing each thing. Just for people watching, because it's like those little things can make a huge difference in your practice, and it doesn't really take so much more effort to just
absolutely
the process. That's all we're trying to do, is not spend so much time playing through, you know, the golden age problem, and just activate, energize, go. You know, we have time, we've got a gig later, have to go, have to learn this.
Oh my goodness me. And actually Yo-Yo Ma, how much did he practice? Do you remember? 2 hours a day. Top world-class cellist on 2 hours. He said his father worked very hard with him as a young kid, drummed into him how to practice.
Yes.
And that's what we're doing.
Etude. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
So he's such a happy guy.
Yeah, exactly.
He is, isn't he? Right. So are we going to face the next bit?
Yes.
I love this bit. Isn't it good?
Me too. Me
too. Okay.
It's very like, I don't know, freeing in some ways, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, it is. A few things thinking about this. First of all, really thinking about my body and how I'm going to use it, because what we're talking about is going very fast from here. This one isn't set. This isn't a big deal, but this is coming from here, and you've got very little time from here to here. So you do need to think about your skeleton and your muscles. You actually really need to think about your body and how it's working for you. And I find from my teaching that most people, and this is not a criticism, this is have a look at your body and just check. Most people use this arm like it's a rucksack full of stones, and they're moving with their fingers, and it's literally pulling up their arm. If I have to say again to my students, please energize from your upper arm and get round the cello. Oh, so many times. The Dome book, brilliant one. He talks about, I love it. He talks about that semicircle you make with your shoulder, engaging the shoulder up and over. But I'd like
he's my teacher in Eastman.
Oh, I think he's wonderful. His
too.
book is very good on body use.
Ailbhe, did you do, I have to just have a quick interjection, did you do any octave stuff in this one?
So Steve, sorry Joely, this is because Steve has an octave shift, so when you do, it's always a 90-degree angle, and then the more you go, it makes you move in a way that, because the neck muscle is moving, so for the long one, you know, it just means you don't even think about where you end up. It's not such a huge, giant
That's
thing.
really good. That is really good. That's something I'll have a think about next with this one. For me, this is brilliant. But you're doing it so much, I think it's really important to be aware of what is helping you do this. So it's not just from the shoulder, it's what's supporting the shoulder. So you've got core here, sitting bones, feet, core, but you've also got your latissimus dorsi, these big muscles here that are really supporting the arm to come up. You also have a joint from here to here that is enabling that. And if you think about the muscles and the joints, that can also help to support you. Otherwise you can feel like you're doing this while you're playing. So it's create that support. So as I went up, that I'm feeling my sitting bones on my feet, and I'm powering through there and underneath here in the lats. So really feeling this, and this has to work.
Yeah.
For me, how I practiced it is I do a stop-start. I don't know if you do this for shifts. For a fast shift, I would do get in place, then play. Place. The other thing I did is I play on the inside of the string for a harmonic, not on top, because otherwise you can fall off. So that.
Yeah,
Hooking round, because otherwise it just a sense of that. Otherwise you can sort of do that and fall off. So that stop start helps me to think up and down, and here I'm really thinking very, very fleet and very light arm.
Yeah.
It's like it's full of helium, and then some gunpowder or some kind of explosion makes it go. But you need to be very firm here. So you are doing this whole, I love the don't. I mean, I've always taught that, but then when I read his book, I was going, oh my God, absolutely. He just says it better. He talks about the two movements. I've always said up, over, up. Get your elbow up and over. I love it. And it's like a surge, a wave surge down the cello. Yeah, and that's what I would encourage
the book.
Yeah, oh, it's so good. I mean, we all studied it before he had it actually published out, and it was just so lovely, because I came back after that where everything just felt easy. Everything. Now, if I could remember it every day, you know, suddenly you're like under pressure.
Of course.
And if you can just get yourself into that, like, it is this comfortable, and that's okay.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't have to be hard. Then the best of you comes out. You know.
I think it's just the classic, which is we are changing our sort of slight minds in cello teaching. When I was learning the cello, it was this great guru says you do this, and then you do it. But now what we're doing is we're questioning our body use. Yeah. How do our bodies work? And actually making sure that when we play this box, it's not, we don't just do it without questioning it. What's going on? How's my body mapping through this? Yeah. Why did that teacher tell me to do it like that? And is it good body use? And if I think it's not, bye. Yeah. If it is, oh my God, I know why they said that now. I know why they said do it like this. And you can almost further explain it. Doan, when I read his book, feels very holistic with the body. It feels like he's really into good body use.
So do you know what he's mad into? He's mad into Feldenkrais.
Yes, that's what's very clear to me is the Feldenkrais.
Very clear.
Yeah.
And I remember, because I would have done a lot of Alexander technique before I went over, and Alexander technique really worked for me, but it didn't really seem to affect my approach on the cello. Whereas then he got in a specialist who works with him directly for all of the studio at our instruments, and that for me obviously just made way more sense to me, because it was someone saying, but why would you do that? You know, so you suddenly even raising, you know, when you have that ability to do this and your sound comes out, or a breath or something, all related to your instrument. That's where all of his is coming from, a brilliant guy teaching Feldenkrais who just suddenly was like, no, but this has to be easy. It has to be an effective use of your body. So it's
the other one is questioning. So when I say question, you can experiment with yourself, literally, while you're practicing. If you notice that your sound feels dissatisfactory, I sometimes play and I think, I don't like that sound. Rather than berating myself, I just go, what would happen if I did this? Or what would happen if I did that? And I love that about Feldenkrais, because basically he was a scientist that just went, explore. Yeah. And now the exploration gets to a point where you actually don't even move, you just think it. Yeah. And I love all of that.
I'm not sure if this is Feldenkrais or but it's totally on the same tangent, if you guys follow me, but it's also that thing of like, saying woohoo before we do burpees, Joely.
Oh, yes!
This is this thing, like getting over the idea that this is a big, huge, hard motion, because if you were cooking and you said, hey, go grab the salt, it wouldn't be a big deal, you know? And this feeling, just like changing your mindset about this being hard, just because it's a big motion. And
I think you're absolutely right. And maybe the first thing you do is not worry about getting that top note, is to get the action. And if you get another harmonic, I'll experiment. So what doesn't matter? And then how did you get it so it gets more? I think part of the problem, Katie, is that people want to get the note and not miss it. How can you? Because you have to get it consistently, bar after bar after bar after bar. How do you do that? How do you know that it's going to go there? Because I'm still work in progress with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we all are. I mean, I think that something that strangely worked for me, and it might be personal, is the things we were talking about earlier of measuring. I don't actually put down my thumb on the like E harmonic, but I think about that. I think E harmonic with the thumb, E harmonic, because it's a way of measuring, right? It's a little closer, like it would be a whole step, a whole tone above where your third finger would be in this normal thumb position. And just having that sense, like reminding myself, think about that. It structures the hand in a way that I'm not just thinking like, you know, randomly hitting this spot.
I think your huge gain with that, aside from the measurement, is hand stability. Because I think some people who might be coming to this study, and naturally I used to play like this, leave the thumb behind. And the minute you leave the thumb behind, you've got a problem, because the thumb is part of the engine here. The thumb helps to push you down. So if you're thinking thumb goes, the whole hand does. Vroom. If you leave your thumb behind, again, something's dragging back. So I love that. Aside from the measurement aspect, there's the fact that your thumb is part of this mechanism. Sorry, I got this mechanism.
Yeah.
And it literally helps to push your hand down. If you leave the thumb behind and you've got all sorts of tensions, you want to keep everything soft and gorgeous.
It's sort of like when you're skiing and you're leaning back on the skis so you lose control and go down the hill. Like I kind of found that when I got up to those, I had to just, not that I'm crouching over the cello, but really lean into it with all of my energy.
But when you do that, can you feel what you're doing with your feet? Did you feel what you did with your...
Yeah,
it's exactly what
energy.
I mean. It's that foot thing. I find I'm feeling my feet. If that makes sense. It's the whole body, and I can feel my sitting bones, my lats really engaging into what I'm needing to do.
That's great.
Brilliant.
I love it.
The other one is just, we can't get away from the fact that we are dealing with something physical, and there's a memory. And there is a moment where it works. I'm afraid I did this with a stopped note, and I would just do and press down and go, how does that feel? What is the relationship here? What is my arm shape making there? Take my hand away. If I put my hand back, waved at the Queen, higher, put my hand back, will I go, just not bad, I'm in the ballpark. Take the hand away, put it back. So there's a sort of shape that you make that you can then return to with your arm. It's an imprint. So what you're always looking for when you're practicing is never one way to get there. Have about 10 resources, practice them all, and they all strengthen in and help you get there, I think.
They do, and mine actually is another one on top of that. So like you could have 15 or whatever, but I always love that memory thing. I love knowing that's where my C sharp is. You know, even at the end where you have to, I actually need my thumb to go down for the C sharp at the end to make sure that I know I'm balanced. But the big thing that helped me, you know, it'll be very interesting later to see. So I actually let my the side of my forearm just rest on the side of the cello at a certain point. And I just, if I know where that is all the time, so I take it away, rest, and think about that part rather than the finger. Now,
oh my God, that's brilliant! I've never done that before.
See, I use that a lot with my students who don't necessarily always listen very much. So I'm like, okay, fourth position, you know, you want to have your hand up and over a bit more. So if you think of the memory of where your hand should be against the instrument where you're touching, then it might work. You know, it does, I would say 90% of the time. And then when you get to the C sharp one, it's a tiny bit higher. So
never done that. So you're feeling it here. In your arm.
different way of looking at it, but
it's lovely.
I mean, the funny thing is, can you, when you're down here, suddenly it's piano, piano actually does do something to your brain, doesn't it, about how far you jump. And so it's the connection.
I think I found for me, because I'm afraid I slightly rewrote the dynamics here for myself. So when it says, sorry, I think I've chosen to perform this, I obey the dynamics and then I work it into my concept.
Sure.
So for me, loud was making me play this very heavily, but I did play it more heavily in the fortissimo. Now that seemed to affect me more. So I start with what I call quite fleeting. I've missed it. There we go. But when I then wanted to play heavily, that actually made me go flat. Wanting to play heavier with the bow, because I think I got heavier with the arms, so I just took a bit more time over it. And so on. I'm missing everyone today.
No, but this is all part of the fun,
so awesome.
Yeah,
but
you know
great.
what's good? Can I just say to anyone watching, you'll see a performance, and I think I nail everyone in the performance, but that's life. You know, you play little bits. The point is not the getting it, it's the journey. We're discussing the journey.
Amen.
Cello power.
Yeah. No shame.
Yeah.
No shame.
I love it.
Oh.
Brilliant. Do you think we should have a little play, or should we?
Definitely. Can I just tell you, that is terrifying. Can I? If anybody's watching this, it is.
No one's watching.
You're the first people that have made me ever perform a proper study outside the class with my professor or a class. I'm sorry, but.
Oh my god.
I know, it was so good. You were like Animal from the Muppets at the end. Whoa.
That was so good. Oh, lovely things, Katie. My God. You know,
well, thank you.
So organised, and so when you got to the ya da 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 da, you were like, yes, I love it. I love it.
I kind of feel like I warmed up by that stage, you know. And this is the thing, right? Like, again, I mean, I love that we talk about all of this like ideal, perfect way to play stuff for like an hour. And then you have to just be like, all right, now I'm going to show you how to do it all. Like, here goes. Like, no pressure, guys. It's just so brilliant to put yourself through that.
No,
so,
it's really,
thank you,
really
guys.
fantastic. And it reminds me of, for me, actually starting this is hard.
Yeah.
Starting it is quite difficult for that reason. And you get into a flow with it. You're right.
Yeah, exactly.
Round of applause.
Sorry, guys.
We have to applaud until she's got her.
So this is really
Awesome.
interesting for me, because this comes down to the fact, and this is so important in our cello playing, we are all playing the same wooden box. You know, we're all built differently. Every single one of us is different. And even though this is a study with everything written in, both of you interpreted certain things differently and made it your own. I love that. That you bring, and that's so important to music, that we bring ourselves to the table and make sense of what this is all about, so that we're constantly being not only creative with our technique, but with what we're communicating through it. It doesn't matter that it's a study or not. I love that. That was gorgeous.
Yeah, great job.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Faster, smarter practice every day.
Yes. How long did it take you to become a big practicer? Oh yeah. Hi.
Oh.
Woo!
Yoo-hoo! I love it.
I love doing that, high-fiving the screen anyway.
I missed the camera entirely.
Yeah,
Clearly I've had practice with this.
You girls are totally awesome. Oh
Oh,
my
It
god.
takes one to know one, Joely.
seriously.
Brilliant.
Love.
Thanks so
Okay.
much.
Thank you,
Mwah.
great.
See you guys soon.
Lots of love. Take care.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye, friends.